Springboks playing their first game since winning the World Cup in 2019, and it's against Georgia, the Lelos.
Yes, this is a game after my own heart.
It is a game after your own heart. It's going to be a Friday game, so Friday, July 2nd at Loftus Versfeld, kick-off 7 o'clock. I think that's local time, actually. So it'll be 6 o'clock, I think, BST. It's going to be refereed by Mike Adamson, or Adam Mikeson, as you've called him, as you've dubbed him, of Scotland.
I don't like to speak ill of people. I don't know how he has a test game, but anyway,
that's all you need to say. I don't know.
Yeah,
it was on the basis of his Bristol Bordeaux showing.
That was one of the classics.
That game of a million whistles and no rugby. Yes.
God, yeah. Anyway, no, don't get me started. Why are you getting me started?
Because he's refereeing the game.
Why are you getting me started on Adam Mikeson? No, I'm not going to give out about him. No, this is a fun game. this is a fun game. So let's keep it fun.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward, first of all, to just seeing the Springboks in action. It's so great to see that they're finally back. And there was doubts about this game going ahead, and when I was first reading those doubts, I was like, oh, they're never going to play again.
Yeah,
they're never going to play again. Springboks are done.
Yeah,
they're never going to play again. But thankfully, the game is going ahead, and we actually have an idea of what the teams are going to be as well. We have the Springbok team named,
which is excellent. Yeah,
but I think there's definitely some intrigue here. It's the first of a 2-game series, which will take place over the next couple of weeks as the Springboks themselves build towards the Lions tour. And obviously I'm also interested in the Georgian aspect of it, which is like they're expanding their game, they're getting good.
They just were crowned Grand Slam champions last week when they beat the Netherlands, so it's a champion v champion. We have Rugby World champions versus perennial Rugby Europe champions,
and to decide which is the better competition.
Indeed, it's like, in terms of the colour, that's what you got. You also have two very physical sides who like to play a pressure game based on power and set piece and physicality. Both sides like to play at a similar tempo, but then notably you have tier 1, tier 2 as a big gulf, because they are similar sides in terms of ethos and maybe even some of the physicality of some of the composite parts. But it'll be a big step up for Georgia, no doubt. But then who knows what we'll see from South Africa. They're a relatively unknown quantity in terms of mixing it with other teams. We've seen them play any of their teams play one team outside of the Springboks, or outside of South Africa recently, and it was the Benetton game, and it didn't go well for the Bulls.
Nope.
So it's a raw kind of thing where they're kind of in an unknown place where it's like, how high of a standard have we been playing at? They don't really know. So the point of these fixtures is going to be kind of re-establish winning ways. I think good positive results and momentum will be very important to try and carry through, but then also minutes for some key guys. Like it's a rotated squad.
Competition for places as well. I mean, the squad is actually fluid. They might bring other guys in. Marcel Coetzee could come in. Tyron Green from Harlequins could come in.
Yeah, he's looked very good.
My God, how good has he looked?
Obviously, there's no Colby, no Faf, no Big Dwayne in this particular team. You have Quagga Smith getting the start. You have Cobus Reinach getting the start.
Team here. It's Oxenche gets the loosehead spot. He's an outside bet for the matchday squad. He may well be backup loosehead to Kitsoff. Very fine scrummager. Bongi and Madambi needs no introduction, starting at hooker. Neither does Trevor and Nyakanye. Very, very good quality. Yeah. And that's one of the areas where there's massive intrigue. Like Melakidze has been unreal for Georgia, don't get me wrong, but it is a tier 2 comp, and so the battle between Melakidze and Oxenche is like box office for scrum experts. It's just box office. Where the Springboks might edge it is the phenomenal engine room, and this will bear so much fruit in the scrum game, I'd say, as well. But Etzebeth and Franco Mostert, World Cup legends.
Peter Steff back in the back row as well for more meaty heft in the back row.
He had a terrifying scare with an injury that threatened not only his career but his life at one point, or his leg at one point. A really bad infection, I believe it was. But he's back in. He's timed it perfectly because he hasn't missed a game.
Back on a pitch and back with a Springbok jersey on. It's going to be excellent.
Khaleesi's in there, as you pointed out. Quagga Smith gets the nod at 8. Cobus Reinach partners Pollard. That's a decent partnership. They've gone obviously not with Delindi Aram just yet. They're gone with the alternate Francois Steyn and Jesse Creel in the midfield, which is going to be interesting. And Speckman sticking it out in the 15s, Roscoe Speckman on the right wing.
Getting a bit of a reward with a nice Springbok cap here, and a chance to shine, because there's options like Willie LaRue is at fullback for them, and who's on the other wing?
Afalele Fassi, who's been brilliant for Sharks.
They have so much speed. We were talking about, there's, like we mentioned it in the World Cup as an option, but we saw Ches and Colby lining up at 15 for Toulouse a few times during the season, kicking drop goals. He played at 10 at one point for them, so he's an option if they want to put him at 15 to get him playmaking and get two of their other lethal wingers who would otherwise be left out. Or Willie LaRue, if he starts lighting it up and showing some of the form. He was brilliant in Japan. He's back from top
Green
league.
Looks well able. Afalele Fassi himself, who's starting on the wing this week, can play fullback and spent most of the season playing fullback for the Sharks. So as in most positions, the depth is now emerging, and one of, as much as for Gatland, the task for Nienaber and Razi is to get the right guys on the field, because form is so important, and to have guys who are of high quality is going to be important as well. And this is going to be, it's not an ideal warm up. Georgia are not a tier 1 side yet, and as much as I'd love them to be, they're not there yet. So
maybe that's a part of why it isn't an ideal thing, because maybe they want an incremental increase in standard, and they want to kind of come in a little lower, but obviously with a match intensity, like Georgia have been playing a few games and they're recently crowd champs, and it's a good hit out against a physical side who'll test them that way. So it's all just building blocks, much like we were citing with the Lions in terms of their games and this string of warm-up games, all just trying to rediscover shape, patterns, bed in some of these systems and how they want to play, and then kind of build that. The equation very similar for the Springboks, because they played no rugby since the World Cup. It's a mini short form of condensed matches that they have just enough time to try and assemble their troops and try and rediscover their patterns, their shape, their systems, try and let them bed in. That's one of the big curiosities in this game, is just, will they start a little sluggish, and if so, how long will it take them to settle at all? Because Georgia may ask them some questions, may find problems or cause them problems if they're a little bit off at the beginning, which they might be.
I mean, from Georgia's point of view, I've always been they've always been a pet team of mine. I'm a huge fan of them, and they've had as good a run into the kind of test that this is for them, which is colossal and a mismatch really on paper. But to have that Autumn Nations Cup in the bank, where they found something defensively that they hadn't had before, they were able to, like this, and they were beaten in all those games, but they were able to shut down teams for large periods.
They found a good try against an Ireland side, and
they were abrasive in the contact, and they spent large parts of games defending their line gamely, and not giving up the same kinds of scores they used to. They looked well able for the physical battle, and then they've dovetailed that with their performance in Rugby Europe, which, while very much true to their roots at times, has expanded their game significantly, and
they've moved the ball much better. They have a young 10
and a young 9. Lobsondance's form is great from 9, and he they're actually bringing tempo and quality, and then Tato Absendanza from 10 looks like, if not the best out halves in tier 2 rugby. He looks
excellent right now, and he's been moving them about. They have some more speed. They have some really good young players, particularly at back row. They're embarrassment of riches at back row.
But Saganadze in particular, I talk about
Jaragonia and all of these guys. But on the wings now as well, and just even in the centres, they have more speed. Kveseladze at 13, they just have more speed than they used to many years ago, and a new 10 who can find some of those guys. So they are developing.
And we want to talk about an 18-year-old fullback who looks lightning.
Unreal. Fresh off his hat-trick last week, wasn't it?
That Niniashvili, if put in space, is as quick as Afalele Fassi. I think he's as quick as any of them.
He excellent in the open space,
and knows how to take a score if it's there. And so from that point of view, if Georgia obviously can marry the physicality that they've developed, where they're able to mix it with those tier 1 sides, with the more expansive play that they're trying to bring, where they can move the ball well and take scores well, then you could be starting to put together the nuts and bolts of Georgia, mixing it with tier 1 teams.
It's exactly what they want, where they want to be in terms of, like, it's their national sport. They're desperately pleading with World Rugby for more of a fair shake. Obviously, the debate between Georgia, Italy, they're getting it. Well, this season has been great for them, starting with that Autumn Nations Cup campaign, and then building through the Rugby Europe Championship, and now with a test series, a 2-match series against the world champions. This is exactly what they want. It's a seat at the table with the big boys. Doesn't get any bigger than world champion Springboks. Those are literally the biggest men you can find in this game of ours.
There's quite a gap between the Netherlands and the Springboks as well, and the fear that I would have for them would be just the razor sharpness of the Springboks, and like that's the problem. Like their physicality is good it can mix it with tier 1 teams, but can it mix it with world champion physicality? Probably not, and everything might fall apart if they start to lose collisions or lose them badly. And the Springboks are just another level of physicality.
Well, we saw in the World Cup, with their showings in the World Cup against Australia and was it Wales they played as well in that group, I think it was. That they struggled because they didn't have a kicking option at 10. They couldn't really exit. They couldn't do anything. They were pinned back for most of the game, couldn't implement their game plan at all, and were ultimately kind of bullied by the team, by the superior kicking acumen, and just kind of a few degrees off. They were noticing the difference.
Their defense wasn't great, and their attack.
Their defense has improved. That's another thing they've improved this year. Since the Autumn Nations Cup, is just proactive defense. It never really made any sense that they were so dominant in collisions with the ball and yet very passive on defence and the defensive side of the hit. They seem to have remedied that. They have been more proactive with line speed and the hit.
Absolutely, and it needs to become for them a game about Tato Absendanza is going to be so important, because as much as they like to try and play expansive, the Springboks like to try and shut you down. And if they're a little clunky and they can't get any go for it on the inside, there's no sense trying to whip it to the wings or to Niniashvili because they'll be eaten alive. So it's going to have to be the boots of Absendanza and Tato just being much sharper, and Tato in particular trying to get on the front foot, forcing kicks in behind, and then the defensive job is to force the Springboks to kick it back to you and then engage in one of those battles, try and mix it up front. From the Springboks point of view, it is a great test for their pack, but one they should be confident of overcoming. It's like it is a decent litmus test of just whether you are what you remember yourselves to be. Like the Springboks that won the World Cup should make mincemeat of what is a very able Georgian pack.
Like they'll want to dominate and bully them at set piece, and they know that the Georgians won't roll over and let them do that unless they physically force them to by picking them up and shoving them into the dirt, which is the Springbok way. So they'll want to rediscover that in this game test. It's not dissimilar to what Eddie Jones thinks when he gets the Georgian pack in to scrummage against England in advance of big Six Nations games. There's respect there. They know that the guys can scrummage. They're physical. They're strong. They play a very similar brand to what the Springboks are playing. So there'll be an understanding there, mutual understanding of these boys hit hard. We both hit hard. We're going to have a physical game and probably get some good minutes under our belt because of it. Two games now against a game and a match sharp Georgia. That's what's on Georgia's side is the form, because they've actually played games.
And the squad is pretty well settled as well, coming through that Nations Cup and coming through this recent Rugby Europe Championship. They had a warm-up game for this series last week against the Netherlands. So where in previous encounters with tier 1 sides they could complain of not being able to get the preparation 100% right, I think on this occasion they have better preparation
than their hosts. So they're the one. They'll hope to start the game really strongly and start quick and try and even get a lead going while the Springboks are kind of gelling and rediscovering themselves at international level. It'll take good time.
It is in the lofty heights of Loftus in Pretoria, and that is a problem because altitude is not something that the Georgians would have dealt with before.
Not properly, no.
They are big units and plenty of... It's not even excess fat, it's almost excess muscle that a lot of them have, where they're just very, very big, stocky guys, and when you don't have that extra bit of oxygen to suck in, they might find it very tough, especially towards the tail end of the second half.
It's tough to see the final quarter being Georgia's, as it rarely is when tier 2 sides meet tier 1. So it's the optimist would hope that in the first quarter they can find some success and make a game of it.
Nuggets, I'm looking here. The second test is in Ellis Park. I hope they move those to Cape Town. That seems unnecessary, but that's the real problem for Georgia as well, is that even if they do mix it, just the altitude factor is rough and really does favour the world champs. So in terms of how it's going to go, like, it's definitely I see scope for the Georgians to mix it for a while, but personally I think that as the Springboks warm to their task in the second half, I think they pull away and probably flatter the scoreline. Like, I think Georgia's good moments won't be reflected on the scoreboard as is often the way, to the extent that they should be, especially when faced with that Bok defense. Like they might,
although it'll be an Amless defense, it'll be
but it'll be a Peter Steph full defense.
Yes, that's true.
Like it'll still be very
Tato could get smushed.
He could, like he's still a young guy. I'd love to see Niniashvili get in, and I'd love to see the Georgians get to the extremities and find tries. But I think like maybe 1 or 2 is possibly too much to hope for. That's what I am hoping for. But I do see the Boks as with the altitude factor and the Georgians being a bit leggy, pulling away, and something in the region of like a 45-14 kind of scoreline.
Yeah.
Although with positives from Georgia, and it still wouldn't mean they're as far away as all that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably take the under on that. I'll say that the Boks only manage around 30 to 35 points, and that the Georgians manage 2 tries, 12 or 14 points, one of those. So a little double
both
scores.
are plausible.
Yeah, double scores for South Africa in the end, but not without some scutteriness and some squatteriness.
Of course, if the Boks just rock up and
if they do what the Lions did to Japan and turn up and be cohesive, and suddenly they're playing their game instantly, well then scratch that.
You could be any number. Could be any number. The Boks are that good.
They are that good. But I'm optimistic for Georgia. What I really hope to see is that Georgia have improved from from the Autumn Nations Cup even.
Yeah.
Because the Autumn Nations Cup, they showed their merits. They were a bit disappointing, and it was the scoreboard. They had moments of good play that weren't reflected on the scoreboard because they weren't clinical enough.
Yeah.
Now in this year we've watched them try and expand their game, try and use more of the field, find some young talent out wide. I hope that's reflective on the scoreboard. I hope they find a couple of tries this time.
Yeah, well, the weather will be on their side. It will be. It's not going to be a wet ball like it was in the Autumn Nations Cup, and that'll help them because they can stick passes, but they're not good enough to really stick them.
The Autumn Nations Cup is is the caveat to attach to the Springboks as well. Because remember how down everyone was on international rugby a few rounds into that, and how bad some of those games were, and how lethargic all those teams looked when they hadn't played any. It was the first bit.
A lot of these guys have been playing rugby. They have. Like a lot of them are not even South Africa based, you know. So I think that like there's a tendency at times to overstate that.
No, of course.
Etzebeth has been playing for too long. He's been doing a great job.
Colby's not available right now because he's undergoing mandatory quarantine. By the
way,
way,
he played
he played the final. So, but he will be back in the mix. He's not for this game, but
I should mention Malcolm Marks is on the bench as well. Stephen Kitsoff, France Malherbe, which is possibly the starting front row to come on off the bench.
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
And Visa is going to be an uncapped man on the bench as well. He's in there in the back row.
Marvin Orey going to get his chance as lock cover. The 2 Yankees brothers in the back line, along with Willemse as well. Makes up that bomb squad on the bench, which looks pretty powerful too.
Looks last quartery. Tough for Georgia. So I think with all that said, I think I hope Georgia go well. I hope it'll be exciting to see the Springboks, the world champions, take the field again. What I really hope is a good game played in good spirits, same as always, and may the better side win. It'll probably be the Springboks.
It'll be the Springboks, but it's a great game nonetheless. Thank you for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please be sure to like and share with your friends. And if you'd like to hear more of what we have to say, please be sure to subscribe and click that bell so you get notified when we upload our videos. And please join the comment section as well. We like to get a fun conversation going here.